This is a video in the wild of the birth of a new baby.
A baby has just been born, and his sisters and aunts crowd round like visitors to a maternity ward. His first experience is a forest of welcoming trunks, helping him to his feet. Few other animals show such human-like interest and concern in another's newborn.
When I was in Africa, we were driving, 4 of us with the researcher in front in an open-bedded truck, and we had stopped for a moment, and very slowly a breeding herd came out of the woods, and we were surrounded eventually by 20 or 30 of these wonderful animals, many adult females and their children, and we just stayed there for 3 or 4 hours while they foraged and fed and cared for offspring. But these animals have tremendous space requirements because of their massive size and being highly social and very powerful. They're built to cover a large amount of ground over vast territory. And of course, I think Dr. Sudi will agree that it helps to build healthy muscles and healthy, strong feet and a good, strong skeleton. And I actually was in an environment close to Mozambique where I actually experienced all of those different climates and different terrains. These elephants were able to move through forest and large savannas, and you can see they were actually in what we called a desert forest, so they were moving on sand as well. So they had a variety of ways in which to move. And as you see, they were very active and they were very engaged. Now the left-hand picture is a 45-year-old single bull elephant whom we also came upon. He was very tolerant of us, but his tusks, when he brought his head down, actually touched the ground. Often that can go on for hours, is brought on by great anxiety and stress, and expresses itself, excuse me, in elephants restricted to small space and with little mental or physical stimulation. Another report says they are believed to be a means to help an elephant cope with an adverse environment in which their natural energies are almost entirely pent up and their natural behaviors are blocked. So those zoos and circuses say that elephants are thriving. Their medical problems and their stereotypic stress behaviors show that they have both physical and mental damage. This is Rama, who's one of the elephants at the Oregon Zoo, and 4 other elephants exhibit these same behaviors we're aware of. The younger elephants I have not seen, but Rama, Tusco, Chandra, Paki, all exhibit, Rose 2, all exhibit these behaviors. The Oregon Zoo has a history of separating mothers from calves, and the latest incident was with Lily. You might know about her. She was under the property rights of Have Trunk Will Travel, and Have Trunk Will Travel is an entertainment venue. They use electric shock and prods to train their elephants to do circus tricks. And there was such an outrage at her being moved that the zoo actually relented and bought her. So she is at the zoo. However, one of the more disastrous exchanges was Prince. And Prince was taken at 16 months old. Now, elephants don't wean until 4 years, but he was at the Oregon Zoo, and the Oregon Zoo felt they had no need for a bull elephant, which is quite common, actually. Zoos like to have female calves. So he was sent to the Ringling Brothers Circus and really endured years of abuse as a circus animal. And then he returned to PAWS after 24 years, and this is his 3rd anniversary there, so we'll see him later in this presentation. The bullhook is not a guide, although it is called that by zookeepers and the zoo culture. It is a weapon, and it has a heavy, long handle that can be used for beating the elephant, and you can see what it's made of here. And it's used to strike the elephant, often puncturing the skin to gain dominance and control by inflicting pain. So the principal training here is the bullhook, and if you notice the sensitive places on an elephant's skin, the bullhook is used behind the ears, around the sensitive tissue of the eyes, around the nerve centers of the feet, along the trunk, and it can also be used as clubs. Now, this is a video reported from on Have Trunk Will Travel, so you will see what Lily would have had to endure.
Get over. Get over. All right, lay down. Lay down. Come here. Come here. Got it. Dixie, get over. Come here. Get over.
As you can see, based on their experience, they're great learners, and they experience pain and punishment, so they learn quickly to avoid the bullhook, which is cueing behaviors and training, and beating them into submission. And by maintaining the fear of being jabbed or being beaten ensures that the elephant obeys commands. This is at the Ringling Brothers. It would have been what Prince would have experienced. There's many videos on the Ringling Brothers' brutal methods of training. And in this case, they're taking a baby elephant. They take the elephants away at birth from the mothers and separate them for training. And they use block and tackle and bull hooks and stretch them out to get them to do various things. And zoos are not exempt, including the Portland Zoo. And I'm showing this, just a moment, Bob. I'm showing this because Annie, whom you'll see here being beaten at the Milwaukee Zoo, is now at PAWS. And we're going to see her and her recovery later. Elephants are capable of suffering from physical pain and emotional pain. And Joyce Poole testified to the Massachusetts legislature on the use of bullhooks and said, to treat an elephant in a manner which inflicts both physical suffering and psychological suffering is inhumane, as this so well shows. And the Oregon Zoo is not exempt from abuse. In 2000, Rose 2 was hit 176 times, and the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, actually fined the zoo for neglect and having a veterinarian look at her immediately. And in 2003, Pet had many lacerations, and the keeper said, we just wanted to keep her moving, so we used the bullhook aggressively. Well, Pet was slowed by painful arthritis and terrible foot rot, and she was actually euthanized because of her foot problems. And so that kind of behavior is truly misguided. There were puncture wounds on her trunk, her feet, shoulders, her head, back, hip, and ears. And then finally, Chendra, the little Malaysian elephant, was cured aggressively on her left side, supposedly because she was blind. It seems a misguided reason to use the bullhook, but they wanted to get her attention and she couldn't see on that side, so they hit her. The Oregon Zoo still uses the bullhook to handle elephants, even though there is a humane and positive alternative. This is PAWS, and these are my pictures of Nicholas. He's a 12,000-pound bull, and when he came to PAWS, he was said to be completely incorrigible and unmanageable, and he was just a delight to see. And what is being shown here is a system of handling animals and handling elephants that's very humane and wonderful for the welfare of the elephants and very safe for the trainers, because there's always a barrier between the elephant and the trainer. And instead of a bullhook, excuse me, you have a soft pole, a bamboo pole with a soft pad at the end. And the reinforcers are only positive reinforcement. There's no bullhooks, no punishment. And the elephant moves toward the target. The pole is the target and gives you the behavior that you're asking for. And when that happens, the elephant gets gentle praise and he gets lots of treats. And so since at PAWS, and in this method of handling elephants, participation is completely voluntary. So it enriches the elephant because the elephant has choice to come in the barn or not come in the barn, to exhibit his foot or not. But they mostly do, I'm told, because they get these wonderful treats. So it's a very positive, humane, safe way of handling an elephant. Now, you can see that PAWS is just this beautiful, undisturbed, quiet sanctuary of 2,300 acres. And it has the kind of terrain and conditions that are so good for an elephant. It has those hills, vast openness. You see the beautiful pools, and they have heated barns. The African females, of which there are 6, and 3 Asian females and 2 bulls, including Prince. The African females actually have a jacuzzi tub, and it's a 12-foot tub. And I was told that one female had such terrible arthritis, actually went into the pool for 2 hours and wouldn't get out. So it was quite wonderful to see. And I was taken into the barn, and one of the elephants came in who was quite afraid of the pool. And so the protected contact method of handling her was used, and she slowly came into the pool and she got her wonderful treats. So it worked very well. But walking long distance and swimming does tone the muscles and helps relieve pressure on the joints, and the varied terrain and natural ground supports foot health and strengthens the ligaments and tendons in the feet. And the natural foraging, which is on live vegetation, gives you nutritional health and foot health. And these elephants walk 3 to 15 miles a day. So they have a vastly improved life and environmental facility here in which to behave and take and be active. And this tells you some of the benefits of this kind of large environmental facility. I've mentioned some of them. Certainly the natural substrate is very, very important. You have different kinds of ground, but soft ground, live vegetation, and what I saw was this freedom of choice in companions. One of the Toronto elephants, because the Toronto Zoo closed their elephant exhibit, was in one of the enclosures, and Ed Stewart, the owner of PAWS, told me that they were being very careful with her because she seemed to be shy and she seemed to not want to join in with the other elephants. So she was in her own separate enclosure. So they give these elephants tremendous time to reestablish these social relationships, so there aren't these forced separations and forced sociology, social ability that we have in most of the zoos. And certainly there's freedom from the fear-based handling. Excuse me. Is it open to the public? Well, it's not open. It is open to the public for educational events. So these elephants are never on exhibit. They're never rented, traded, and never perform. But what PAWS does do is, because it's a privately funded nonprofit, so, and they are an educational facility, so what they do is often they have one event once a month that you can participate in for 1 or 2 days and not only see the elephants, but see all the animals that they have, including tigers and bears. And the donation is $250. And what you would be doing would be what I was doing, which you are moving through the facility with Ed Stewart, who's the founder, and he is really talking to you about understanding elephants for 5 hours. So it's definitely an educational and a joyful trip, because you're seeing these elephants thriving. That's another thing. The recovery is obvious. They have a better quality of life. It restores their feet. Mental and emotional health improve. And what I found quite remarkable is these terrible stress behaviors are virtually eliminated. I didn't see any of those behaviors while I was there. And I also saw some lovely friendships and interactions with the elephants. Maggie in 2007 was so weak from the Alaskan confinement, she had lost the ability to actually hold her head up and had crippling foot and joint disease. And Maggie's feet now are healthy, according to her keeper. So she's one of our survivors, and she's in recovery. I saw Maggie there.
Maggie also was alone, deprived of that crucial contact with other elephants.
The social interaction, they coo to each other, they touch each other, the stimulation, the companionship, they depend more upon that, more so than a lot of other species.
Even I could see that Maggie was not well. She was so thin that her hide was just hanging on her, and she had fallen twice and couldn't get up. You looked into her eyes and they were just hopeless. There was no hope in her eyes at all.
The final straw was when the fire department rescue squad had to come to get Maggie back on her feet.
That happened twice to us, and at one time she was down for 12 hours. And that's a really long time for an elephant to be down.
Alaska Zoo officials adamantly resisted any move for Maggie, at least until they saw PAWS.
It was just such a peaceful setting, as close as you could get maybe on this continent per elephant.
Maggie seemed almost giddy.
Woo-hoo! Maggie, that's good. That's good.
Maggie finally was introduced to her new family of female African elephants. This is video of that very moment. Maggie, on the right, the smallest one, approaching the first elephant she'd seen in years. Cautiously, as pachyderms do, rear end first. That was 5 years ago. They've been inseparable ever since.
Here is Prince. We've talked about Prince, who went to the Ringling Brothers and had an abusive life for many years. He came to PAWS at 24 years old, but I was told that he was so weak that he could only take a few steps up the hill. But I want to show this video because it is so joyful in contrast to the forced kind of physical discipline and confinement that he had to endure. He's in his pool. This was 6 days after his arrival at PAWS. They clearly love water. And we know about Annie. Annie was beaten in the Milwaukee Zoo and lived a life of confinement and really harsh physical discipline, but she no longer endures chains and beatings. When she first arrived at PAWS, she was very aggressive, and she bobbed her head up and down, but now she doesn't do that anymore. She's enjoying the swim here. So these 3 elephants came quite broken to PAWS, damaged physically and mentally from loneliness, confinement, and abusive handling. Their beginning recovery that I saw is a powerful and compelling argument to re-examine how our zoo is keeping and managing elephants in captivity, and to look to the sanctuary as a model to learn from. We need to end the use of the bullhook and free contact management, adopt protected contact, and provide elephants with an environment like this that better meets their needs. And I have if you are interested, these are some of the issues that are important to bring up to Metro and the zoo. And I have their contact information at the back if you would like to write a letter. Thank you.